The fight has turned more vicious than I actually thought. I figured that Lucy would have a medium level of difficulty with Kiria, but Kiria is putting up more of a fight than I anticipated around her. And I guess that's fair to say. We didn't really have a ton to go off of Kiria's strength because the most we'd really seen was like really you could have rounded up the skirmishes with Urza because Urza obviously would win in the end, but we don't know where Kiria sits in that line between the like where we've seen her fight actually Urza and then Urza's actual like full power. Because the first time they fought, she only beat her because of, the hacks that she used on Laxus. That's not something that obviously has to do with like a power-based thing. That's just something that is a hacks trick that you can use on a character, get him in some form of a situation, use your ability. And anyway, Kiria, because of that, and then when you look at Laxus, it's like obviously like Laxus is, it bodied her. But it's like there's a big question mark in where we've seen Kiria at, and then where we've seen that she is not at, and like where in there has she been at. So her being stronger than what we had previously seen is fine with me. I like it. I mentioned before, out of like all the Diablos, because I've liked all of Diablos. I've enjoyed the Diablos guild a lot. Out of all of them, Kiria is like ranked dead last for me. I would say that she is my least interested in Drag Eater. But I think after this chapter, it improved her a little bit in my book. And then after that, maybe even if we can get some backstory and maybe get a little bit more insight on her as a personal character, then she can move up a little bit. Because, Wraith is cool and so is Nibiru, but as of right now, they were only in that one part. Nibiru has a potential to come back, but Wraith is really never coming back. And Wraith is Wraith's weird because he added backstory and just like a little bit of extra kind of like detail that added a little bit to the story that was enjoyable, but it's not like he changed the game or did anything crazy or like revealed anything that was beyond what we knew as possible within the world. Anyway, the whole setup with Kiria, I think Kiria is one. I wonder how many attacks she actually has, because we haven't seen many of her that actually look that crazy. We'll talk about that really when we get onto it. But what about this? The opening portions of the chapter, the cover art I thought was I was just looked at it and I was like, okay, I figured it would be maybe something to do with the Fairy Girls characters, because obviously the title with woman on woman fight or whatever, woman to woman battle. You figure it to be something kind of female themed, with it being obviously focused on these two chicks battling. But Kiria, I will say, the thing that's funny is, even though Kiria got in a spot where she's the one that got looted, I like the scene more because it adds more to Kiria's character. She's not just this psycho masochist, crazed swordswoman. It shows a level of humility to her. Getting her in this embarrassing situation, it just makes her feel more of a realistic character. And especially with Laxus showing up, and I figured that with her and just Lucy, she probably would be fine fighting her naked. She probably wouldn't care that much, just based off of the situation. But she kind of put herself right into a worst case scenario of a guy walking in, and obviously the worst case guy for her was Laxus. And she gets super scared and is cowering, covering herself up. Again, it's done in a way that's funny for her, or funny against her, but I like that it makes her feel more of a person and not a caricature. As I feel like I'm mispronouncing the word, but I think it's just the way that it's just jumbled up on character. I'm just gonna skip over that. Anyway, I think that my throat's being congested, so I don't know if it's messed with like my speech a little bit, just some of my pronunciations. But Laxus, just being a Chad, just gives her his big pimp coat, and I thought it's just a really nice moment. Again, further down this, and I've enjoyed this subplot. I didn't think it was gonna be here. I thought maybe like after this fight we would see something with Laxus and Kyria, but not during the Lucy and Kyria fight. I was extremely worried that Laxus was going to do something to just crush Kyria, and it made sense that Lucy was fine just having Laxus just like dominate her and get this done with, because even though that Lucy's confident in her abilities, it was like let's get through this and then just kind of continue on where we got bigger things to do. And Lucy's more of an intelligent person looking at the bigger picture rather than like having a personal skirmish. So I get that, but I did really like when Kyria is saying how, oh, this is a fight between Lucy and I, just us women, so stand with Laxus, and Laxus is just like, well, okay, I guess, like, it's not a big deal to me, but like, if you guys want me to, I'm okay with that. And then Lucy's like, no, I don't want that at all. I actually want you to help me. Like, seriously, let's get this taken care of. And he just starts to get ready to flex. She does her whole hypnosis. We do get a reveal, so this was interesting. So I thought this made sense as a weakness, as like a loophole in the hypnosis, that it didn't work on Laxus because of how Laxus saw himself and how his emotions and stuff, and how he saw his own vision of strength and weakness and whatnot. But it's actually because of the White Wizard. It was actually because of the stuff with Ferris and that whole control that got in the way. So I thought that was actually really interesting, because it makes it so Kyria actually gains her 1x ability back. I mean, she has another, because she can cut through ethereal things. She can cut through things that are obviously don't have physical mass. So that in of itself is a kind of hacks. But I mean, I'm hoping Kyria does something one more thing to kind of really round out her moveset. Or maybe just have a actual sling of abilities. Because so far all she really has are different bladed attacks. And they're not even ones that really do the different effects. It's just kind of, she is just moving her hands not even crazy like if she did something closer to what Easel did, where Easel would swing his hands around and you just see slashes all over the place, we get something like that. But Kyria just seems to have all big single strikes. I know she has her roar, and then she has her sword dance, but outside of that, it just seems to be multiple singular slashes. Oh, my cat is howling in the background. It's what is going on? She's doing it right in the middle of this video. It's fine. I can understand for the whole bit with Lucy not wanting to see Laxus in this bad situation, because Laxus it's weird to see somebody being forced essentially to behave in a manner that is not isn't the way that that they are. So it would, on top of that, she's making him kneel and be a bit degrading to himself. So I can see why Lucy would be bothered. I thought it was funny when I was thinking about this, is everybody in this scene right now is blonde. Laxus, Lucy, Kyria, all of them have that yellow hair. Selene as well, but she's not here right now. After this point, also Kyria looks really cool in the Laxus coat, I will say. But she seems to be actually fighting with more seriousness and actually with more aggression in her battle with Lucy now. And Lucy's matching blades with her for a moment, and she gets angry when Lucy's saying I'm not a small fry, bringing up the fact she cut her clothes, and then she does Blade Dragon's double slash, and it's just a double attack. Then she goes for a rending slash. I think that's her basic one. I have to go back and look at the first one she used, not her secret technique, but just her normal kind of like regular melee attacks. I think it is because I remember her. I remember some of her abilities, and she only used like a couple in that first encounter. And Kiria only has a few. I'm hoping she does something like really neat with like her slashes. I guess she's because like otherwise, she needs a couple things to kind of differentiate her from Suzaku, because Suzaku obviously as another sword styled dragon slayer, he is just an all around superior unit in that regard. Like, not only is his like crazier stats, but obviously his style just seems way better. Way more honed, way more precise, way more actually like effective and lethal. Her cutting through also Lucy's whip was really surprising. Like, that was a turn I didn't think was going to happen. The damage done to her, that big slash across her chest. The cutting of the whip was, I think, more of a shock than the slash. Just because it's a sign, obviously, that kind of invalidates the whip, which is a big thing, obviously, against Lucy. I think that Lucy did not make a good choice in the advancement in where she was going with this, because I get like she would switch into like her whip, but it's like you should have known at the point where she broke your swords that you need to switch into something else, because obviously she just beat that whole form, and as far as we know, there's nothing else she can do in that form without the blade, so she should have immediately switched into something else before doing anything else, because like what was her whip really going to do against that blade? I can understand for Lucy of why she didn't think it was just gonna slice right through, but still, there's no way that it was gonna block all the damage. But besides that, when she goes into her Stardress mix, I understand her mindset. When she's saying how she needs to use something more to her level and goes into her Stardress mix, she should not have gone into this one. Leo Virgo form. So one thing that I've seen people talk about when it comes to comparing her forms, we only have the two. We only have the two right now of her Stardress mixes. We have her Leo Virgo form and we have her Aquarius Scorpio form. The differences between the two in how they work is the Leo Virgo form with Leon Maiden, it's a wide range AoE light attack. Its value is, it's still going to be powerful, but its value is in, it's a really big area attack to hit the opponent and to hit multiple opponents. Whereas with her Aquarius Scorpio Stardress mix, she uses an Aqua Storm. It destroyed one of the golems for Metro. The characters like Gajo, who was in base, and Mary Jane was in her like regular Saint and Soul form. But we know from general areas in those arcs of like what these guys also were capable of and what this means for them, because Gray wasn't able to take him down either, and Gray was fine. So that should tell you, like, Gray obviously was in base, but I mean, like, Gray should still be around this friggin' level as well. So that should give you a good understanding of like where she's at, like with her style. And obviously that's in the same arc. This is a stronger Lucy, but that should still apply. This is an attack I don't like. I get why like she would go into this, because this is like her. This is what I imagine her go-to form is, like Virgo and Leo. Like this is like her most standard. Okay, I'm gonna start using my Stardress mixes, but she should have went into something like Cancer, Scorpio, or not Scorpio rather, Cancer Taurus or Cancer Capricorn. Either blades and super strength or blades and technique, because I think that was what she really needs for the fight against Kiria. I don't know what she was really, like, where she was really thinking this was going to go, other than maybe it could take her down. I think this was a bad choice from Lucy, but to be fair from Lucy, I think even from her standpoint, she would have really saw it only as, okay, if this doesn't work, I'll try something else and try another attack. Worst case scenario, she tanks it. I don't think that she expected it to go this badly. And I can kind of understand it, because she hasn't been in a lot of fights where her Stardress mix has been in a major situation. Like it's been in like a big major fight rather. And she hasn't had nearly as much experience with it as her other abilities, like her general summoning, her Stardresses themselves. So I can see where she would use it and then not see something like this coming. But I will say that like she should have really like the moment you see Kyria cutting through like your magic whip, something that is ethereal, but like a magical like a magical tool, not an entity, and other whatnot things that she's done. You need to contemplate like how can I hit her without her being able to cut, and it's like AoE is like without as much damage is not going to be like she should have tried to set something up and then got in off the storm and like maybe like use Gemini and some of her spirits to set it up so Kyria like was distracted by them from an off the storm, right? Like side swipes or does a bunch of damage, something like that I could see, but like this was just not a great option for Lucy, and this is something that I think that she really needs to work on when it comes to her upper fights, because she didn't use any of these when she fought Mimi, and I think this is part of her thing. Is like there's like a degree of characters leveling up off screen that's understandable. Like it depends on the time and like what it is. So like if Lucy can only do so much with her like abilities that she's never shown to do off screen or on screen, like other Stardust mixes. But I do think that she should have like really thought about like the situation of like, okay, what's working and what doesn't work? How can I make what was working work again? Because she knows she's got to fight her with blades. So then the big thing happens at the end of the chapter. She uses a new attack, which I was actually really happy about. Blaze Dragon's Overlord Sword. Really cool name. I like that. And cuts right through Leon Maiden. And again, I don't think Lucy expected that at all. And that's a thing I can understand. Like, again, you don't have a ton of fights with this ability. So a scenario like this never came to mind. But like, this is one of those things though, like, unless you really think about your opponent in specific of like what they could do to each of your moves, the potential of what they could do, then you're not going to really like see something like this happen. So after that like cuts right through, we see a really obviously aggressive panel. Very last panel, Axis is like sweating looking at him, and the one that is the big question that obviously people are going crazy over on Twitter and stuff is Lucy has the slash on her chest, but also it looks like her arm is cut off. Now, there's no way Lucy died. I don't think Lucy's dead. I don't think anybody's going to think that. There's no way. The Lucy arm cut off, though, is a big question mark to me. That, to me, is more interesting. I don't think the fight's over. I'm still really hoping... Well, I'm expecting Lucy to win because, like, I'll be really surprised if she loses. But I do hope she wins because I think she deserves it. But we'll see exactly how it goes. If she loses to Kyria, I'll be really impressed because for what that'll do to Kyria. Outside of that, the whole thing with the arm is so intriguing of a plot point to make. So something that Mishima, I won't go into specifics. So something Mishima mentioned in Eden Zero recently was that there are events in time that even if they are altered, like, somebody does some form of time-related thing that changes an event, maybe saves a life, prevents something from happening, or, does something to alter the future, that there are things that time will try and nudge back into place. So say a character who in one timeline lost a limb, but because time stuff happened, they didn't lose the limb. In the future, they might lose a limb. And like Lucy, from what we saw in that's I guess just future Lucy. So I was gonna give it like a number, but it's like large number in parallel future Lucy's universe. That she also had the one arm, so maybe Lucy is destined to only have the one arm. I don't know. It'll be really strange if she does that. I'm not gonna say that for 100% she is now one arm. 100%. There's no way that it's not 100%. Like, there's always a possibility there's some form of fake out with it. like maybe Gemini jumped in and blocked, and that's Gemini. It's just an angle that we see her hand is standing there. Lucy is astonished that that she's looking. Who knows? Like that's a big thing. Actually, let me see something real quick. Let me look at Lucy's outfit earlier, because does she have anything on her wrist? No. Because I was gonna I was thinking like, well, maybe that her normal outfit has something on the wrist, but this one doesn't. So maybe it's a sign of Gemini. No, it could be an arm cut off. I mean, in reality, you gotta look at things in a realistic scope. So we'll look at it from the top. We'll go in this real quick. From a standpoint of like outright character deaths. This is a mainstream shonen. Like, there's not like protagonists don't die too often. There are shonen that do it, that kill characters regularly, but like most shonen don't, especially the big shonen, don't kill off protagonists super often. It's only done in scenarios where it's like done as like a massive more event and it's supposed to completely like shake up events in the story. But a chunk below that, when you look at like something like just like serious injuries, Mishima has shown that he's fine with characters losing limbs in the story. And we know that there are ways where Lucy would still be able to sort of have an arm, but like maybe like some form of magical prosthetic or something. I would say like if she does have an arm cut off in the next chapter, I'm fine if she gets it reattached somehow through, like maybe Laxus uses lightning to cauterize the wound on the outside so it heals or something. I don't know. Wendy, she shows up as well and helps heal it. I would say that I'm hoping though that if she has her arm cut off, she at least keeps it off until after the fight. I think this would be so, like, imagine another chapter and a half. Lucy wins the fight, like sets up a way to win with winning, like with doing most of the fight with one arm, and then maybe she gets like her arm back, and then like I said, has Laxus use lightning to pretty much cauterize outside. They find Wendy like heals some of the internal bleeding, like makes some of like the normal like insides heal back together, like. And as long as we keep something like a scar or something, I'm hoping that like we get something out of it that is, if done so, if there's like a trick, then I guess that's a trick. It's just going to depend on what she does and what his plan is. But I'm really hoping for serious damage to Lucy, because I like that Lucy has her own like little rival in Kyria, and I'm hoping she wins. And I think it'd be so cool if like Lucy like suffered like a serious case of damage like that right before, like not right before winning, but like in a fight that she ended up winning. I think that would be really cool and would build a lot of hype for like both her level and what Kyria was capable of. Because that's another thing that this chapter did that made me really happy, because even though I was expecting Lucy to do way better in this chapter, I was expecting Lucy to potentially win the fight of this chapter, but Kyria ended up taking more of the hype spotlight, and I'm perfectly okay with that, because it makes Kyria more competent as a fighter. It makes, like, we saw more side story as a character. It makes her seem less like a caricature and more like an actual person in the story, like somebody that is supposed to have normal human characteristics to them, on top of like whatever their kind of like crazy character personality traits are and like antics and whatnot. But yeah, so Lucy's arm, like, that's the biggest thing I'm going to be looking at in the next chapter. Like, the biggest thing really I'm going to be thinking about over the next 2 weeks is what's going to happen with Lucy's arm. Once I open up 103, am I going to see Lucy's severed arm? Am I going to see Gemini? Am I going to see somebody else there that somehow has the guild mark on the hand? I don't know. Like, there's so many things that like it could be like some strange switch, but whether it's a strange switch or it's real, I just want to get to that page. As long as we have like if it's like not actually like her arm gets cut off, it's like there's some form of save. As long as the save makes sense, it's really going to depend, obviously, on what happens, but we'll see on how things turn out. This, though, this was, I think, a really good chapter. I thought this was really enjoyable because of what it did for both characters, for Lucy and Kiria. It gave, obviously, like I said, it gave Kiria more of a actually capable fighter. We got like her ability back in its full scale. It's not like nerfed now by person perceptions. And on top of that, we have this like Kiria actually being able to fight and being pretty strong. So I mean, that's pretty hype. So if Lucy's able to defeat her, it's going to be more about like her actually defeating like a pretty powerful opponent and not just defeating, somebody who would be regarded as like the weakest member of Diablos. I assume like her and Nibaru are probably like near at that bottom. Like unless we get any like other like new recruits at some point during the story. So outside of what's the big potential for like the opening hype of the next chapter of what's going on in Lucy's arm, but also seeing where like some of the events go. I don't expect we're gonna see Igni and Celine for a while because that's clearly the biggest hype thing. I would hope that after this fight we just see the interaction of them meeting up or something, like them kind of just starting and like kind of like having like a back and forth, and then like maybe like they have like a clash and we just get like a flex panel, like some form of big feat. And then we go over to what's going on in like Lucy Misaki situation or something. Because like those are obviously really hyped too. But I think the big hype around what's going on with the two dragon gods that are now seemingly going to clash needs to have a lot of building hype momentum, because that's going to be really crazy. I think it's going to be a really hype point in the manga. It's going to depend, obviously. I mean, it's going to depend on how it's actually executed. I'm saying the potential, though, is pretty crazy. This right now, though, I will say, even though Mimi was what I would call Lucy's best fight in terms of a battle, the Kiria fight might take it if it continues down this route. Like I said, if it gets like Lucy having a serious wound, like losing it all, like having an arm cut off, and then we see events of her set up a comeback and a win, because that would be really cool. Because at that point, we would have, I would assume, this is obviously based on assumption, we would have more of a big personal character, emotional battle that she has to overcome, rather than just she's fighting somebody that has been like an adversary to her, group since, back since an Elmian. So there's a lot of points right now that I think just hold really strong in the series. There's a lot of stuff coming up, but like I said, people can, because I know one thing I knew after finishing the chapter is that people are going to clown on me because I was expecting Lucy feats. I thought Lucy was going to win more of like of a strong presence in this chapter, but from what Kiria demonstrated, it was more of a Kiria chapter. Which, again, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with her actually getting to do stuff and be a good character. I like Lucy as much as I want like new stuff for Lucy. Lucy has a lot already. I don't want Kiria to be like, is it any point where a character has like a big battle where they lose, or like a character, or a point where they really kind of just get clapped? That's like a big question mark, depending on what if they're ever going to kind of be that relevant. And now Kiria is doing it as well, so we just gotta wait a bit, and then we'll see how some of these fights go, especially when we roll over into some of the larger scale ones, some of the bigger battles, and to what's going to go on with this heart. So outside of that, also I want to know if like that hole that Igni made, is it always going to be there, or is the labyrinth going to try and repair itself? Like, is it the land and they're going to start to connect and then like merge back into just like a full scale massive labyrinth? I don't know. Anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, befriend, like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. From that, appreciate it. Subscribe button. Thank you all for listening. Bye.